Welcome back to FPL Dylan, the home of FPL and UCL fantasy tips. I'll be covering the best free hit team for Blank Gameweek 29, the biggest blank of the season, with only 4 fixtures and 8 teams featuring. And even if you're not using the free hit, this video can be very useful in terms of identifying the best 1 week punts and differentials for Blank Gameweek 29. All content will now be available in podcast format. There are several links in the description below, and I'd also encourage you to check out my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, my Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, and Drafthound, which I'll talk about very soon. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. On paper, Flecken is the best goalkeeper for Blank Gameweek 29 with that plum fixture against Burnley away, but Brentford are decimated by injuries, particularly at the back. Pretty much their entire back four is currently injured, and Reguilón is a doubt, but I'll talk about him fairly soon. Thomas Frank was quite optimistic in his press conference after the Arsenal game, but Flecken has 77 points for the season, and I think he's got the best chance of a clean sheet amongst all teams and all players in Blank Gameweek 29. If you disagree, be sure to drop a comment down in the comment section below, and also you can talk to me on Twitter, Instagram, the Discord server, as always. But I think Flecken is my favourite goalkeeper, but it's slim pickings, if I'm being quite honest, in the goalkeeper position and in the defence. I think a lot of the points will be made in the midfield and forward line, which tends to be the case in FPL, but especially in a blank game week such as this. My backup goalkeeper will be Areola. It's a very tough game against Aston Villa, who just lost 4-0 at home to Tottenham Hotspur, and West Ham were 2-0 down to Burnley, made a late comeback, and it was quite typical really. A lot of people benched Areola in Game Week 27, he got 13 points, and then they start him against Burnley at home, and he delivers absolutely nothing. That is FPL heritage, but I think these two goalkeepers offer decent value. You can even start Areola because of his saves potential, and he can get some bonus points, but Flecken will be the one to start, as I'll show you later on using FPL.team. Some other options would include Martinez, but he's facing West Ham away, and I'm not really a big fan of him, or Aston Villa defenders, period. And I'm looking at the other options. Vicario could be an underrated shout, but Fulham could cause problems in that London derby. So ultimately, I've gone for Flecken and Areola as the best goalkeepers for Blank Gameweek 29. It will be a struggle to identify the best defenders for this week, but there are a few defenders that do stand out from the rest, and one of them is Reguilón with that attacking potential and a decent fixture on paper against Burnley away. Thomas Frank said after the Arsenal game, which Reguilón missed out on due to a hamstring strain, Thomas Frank said Sergio has a minor hamstring injury, he should be available for Burnley. So that seems very positive, and it looks like he will start and be available for the weekend. But let's wait and see. You never know, there could be some hiccups in the interim over the next couple of days. So if you are looking to make a defender transfer, you are looking at Reguilón, I'd still suggest holding off a little while longer. His price shouldn't go up. Maybe the defender you're selling could go down in price, but I wouldn't be too focused on price changes at this point of the season. It's very important, I think, to have all the information possible, but on a free hit, it's no concern whatsoever. You can make additional changes to your squad as the week progresses and before the deadline. So Reguilón is in here with the assumption that he's available for Blank Gameweek 29. Now, the second defender I'm going to go for is Alfie Doughty, another standout for Blank Gameweek 29, which is probably more an indictment of the situation amongst FPL defenders this season, and also the options available in Blank Gameweek 29. But he's got the attacking potential. He's facing Nottingham Forest at home, and there could be a clean sheet, a very slim chance, but I think more likely would be Doughty providing an attacking return and potentially some bonus points along the way. The other standout in terms of defenders this week would be Pedro Porro, but you can go for a doggy instead. I think either one of them is fine. If you want to go a bit more differential, I would recommend the Italian Udogie instead, but I do like Pedro Porro's bonus points potential and also the constant threat he offers from open play and set pieces. But it's worth mentioning his open play attacking threat has diminished somewhat, especially since Maddison has returned from injury, but I still think he's good enough to make it into your free hit squad. There are 2 defender slots remaining, and I'm not a big fan of either option, but you can go for an Alex Moreno, who was benched against Tottenham Hotspur. He came on around 57 minutes, but honestly, with any Aston Villa defender, I wouldn't want to start them this week. That includes Martinez in goal. Of course, if you have a non-free hit team and that's what you have, so be it. But I really don't like these Aston Villa defenders. Pau Torres is the safest in terms of minutes and starts. Moreno or Luca Dean have the most attacking potential. Matty Cash has good underlying numbers, but he has been a woeful FPL asset since game week 10 really, probably even before that. His last return was a long while ago against Luton Town at home, and he got a 5 points in that game. after getting booked. But ultimately, we aren't spoiled for choice in this position. The last defender is going to be Soufal, who has a bit of attacking potential, but ultimately, I don't see a clean sheet for either West Ham or Aston Villa. You could maybe take a punt on a Nottingham Forest defender or Sells in goal, which Drafthound do recommend, but ultimately it's about having that starting goalkeeper in Flecken, who for me is the best goalkeeper this week, and 3 solid options in the starting 11, and we can just about do that with Reguilón, Doughty and Pedro Porro. I'm unsure why Elanga was benched in Game Week 28. A lot of people asked me during the reaction stream, but Elanga got 2 assists in the reverse fixture against Luton Town, his upcoming opponent in the Blank Gameweek, and I think he will start this weekend and do extremely well. That is my opinion of him. I think he could even be a starter in this free hit team, and some algorithms like FPL Team recommend him as one of the best midfielders and options for this specific blank, and he's my favourite Nottingham Forest midfielder, but I think a lot of you would also gravitate towards Morgan Gibbs-White, who is nailed on. You know what you're going to get from him, but I think Elanga has a high ceiling. You've also got Hudson-Odoi as a cheeky pun, or one of Awani or Chris Wood up front, but Elanga for me is my favourite Nottingham Forest option by some distance. There could be a clash if you start him and Alfie Doughty, but you could also be guaranteed almost a return from one of those two in that fixture, and I think Elanga has the high ceiling, that's for sure. Now, if we move on to the other midfielders, it does include Bailey. I would gravitate towards him over Douglas Luiz because the Brazilian is quite poor away from home. He averages less than 3 points per game on his travels, whilst at home, he gets almost 10 points at Villa Park. But with Leon Bailey, it's a bit more balanced. He can do it home and away, but he's another one who also benefits from playing at Villa Park, unlike Ollie Watkins, who just consistently delivers week in, week out on his travels or at home. But I think Leon Bailey is slightly my preference. A lot will depend on the Europa Conference League lineup that Aston Villa put out. If Bailey starts that, I would be quite concerned about him starting at the weekend against West Ham United, and in that case, I would replace Bailey with the ever safe and reliable Douglas Luiz. Now, the third midfielder is another one who is nailed on, starts week in, week out, and that's Jarrod Bowen, who's got a good record against Aston Villa. I mentioned this in my Trans Tips video. He's got 5 goals and 1 assist in 11 appearances against Aston Villa. That's a decent record, and I think he could do very well in this fixture and benefit from that high line that Aston Villa deploy. And that leaves 2 spots left for the midfield. I think you could all guess what it's going to be. James Maddison, for me, is one of my top picks for this Blank Game Week. He has 3 goals and 4 assists in only 6 Premier League appearances against Fulham, and he has never blanked against Fulham at Craven Cottage in the Premier League. So I think Maddison is a great option. He scored his first goal since Game Week 9, which was against Fulham, in the game against Aston Villa at the weekend. That was a crucial goal and, of course, a crucial match for the top 4 race. I think James Maddison could be potentially a better captaincy option than Heung-min Son, who is, of course, going to be in this team. He got a 17-pointer against Aston Villa and has been a great transfer in Game Week 27. I highlight that game week as the best time to buy him, weeks and potentially months in advance throughout all of my videos and live streams. But that is the midfield. 2 Spurs midfielders in Son and Maddison. You've got Bowen, Bailey, and also a differential in Elanga. If you have any other picks, then I'm all ears, and I'm also going to be reading all the comments. But let's now go on to the 3 forwards, where things look quite interesting, but I have to say the choices are a bit more limited compared to the midfield. Ollie Watkins may have blanked in double Game Week 28, but he is an incredible FPL option. It will be very difficult to part ways around Game Week 31. A lot of people will be doing such a move in order to facilitate a midfield of Salah, Saka, Son, Foden, and potentially Cole Palmer, and also going for Erling Haaland up front. You have to make sacrifices, but for the time being, for Game Week 29 and Game Week 30, Ollie Watkins is a must. And speaking of which, there are 5 players for Blank Game Week 29 that I'd thoroughly recommend. Watkins is one of them, and the other 4 would be Son, Maddison, Jarrod Bowen, and of course the next striker, Ivan Toney. He may have blanked 4 times in a row, but I'm still backing him to do very well against Burnley and break his goal-scoring drought. It's in fact been Wissa who's returned in 3 consecutive games, and some of you may consider him, but his minutes are definitely a concern. Even against West Ham, when he scored a late consolation, he came off the bench and only played around 17 minutes. So I definitely recommend Ivan Toney instead. He's on penalties, he plays 90 minutes every single game, and he played quite well against Arsenal, despite the fact that Gabriel Saliba dealt with him pretty well. but Tony still had his moments. He almost scored an incredible goal, but Ramsdale denied him. And I think Tony could be one of the best captaincy options in Blank Gameweek 29, irrespective of his indifferent form. But the final forward is going to be Carlton Morris. Let's see how he does on Wednesday for the last game of Double Gameweek 28. I am backing him to do well in at least one of those fixtures against Bournemouth away or Nottingham Forest at home in Blank Gameweek 29. And you will have a benching dilemma in terms of the midfield and attack. You have to bench one of these and it will be quite difficult. But Carlton Morris could feasibly start. I'd have no concerns of that whatsoever. Despite Nottingham Forest having good defensive numbers under Nuno Espirito Santo, Morris and Luton Town have been quite solid in terms of home matches, at least in terms of an attacking perspective. I don't trust them defensively, but they can score plenty of goals and cause any team in the Premier League some problems. So that is the 15-man squad. Let's now head over to Drafthound and see what they're recommending for the free hit, and then going ahead to FPL.team to order the starting 11 and talk about the captaincy. There is a link to Drafthound in the description below. I'd fully recommend you check it out to gain access to so many tools that are very useful, to say the least. I've been using this since the summer, and their free hit squad includes Sells from Nottingham Forest in goal, Romero, Ruslev and Doughty as the back three, Son, Bowen, Maddison, Douglas Luiz and Bailey, and a front two of Watkins and Morris. Their bench is Areola, Tony, Mengi and Estevi. So I don't really agree with Mengi or Estevi, but I think every other pick is quite solid. I'd also start Tony, and that's something I'm going to show you very soon, but they're anticipating a massive expected points change from around 23.4 to 58.4 by using the free hit and going with their recommended starting 11, and also their captaincy option of Heung-min Son, whilst Watkins is the vice. Very sensible choices there by Drafthound. I do agree with the majority. Of course, there is a few points of contention there, like the ones I mentioned. But now let's head over to FPL.team and give my own starting 11 and captaincy. And if you do have a preference, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. For my best free hit team, I would go for Flecken in goal, a back three of Pedro Porro, Reguilon and Doughty, a midfield four of Maddison, Bowen, Son and Bailey, and a front three of Morris, Tony and Watkins. The bench would be Areola, Elanga, Alex Moreno and Soufal. But according to FPL.team, they're recommending Elanga over Carlton Morris, and that does increase the expected points to 54.1. Will you start Elanga or Morris? I'm very intrigued to see your thoughts, of course, as always. And I would also agree with the captaincy. I think Heung-min Son is the best on paper, but I've put the vice captaincy on James Maddison. Of course, you can't discount the other so-called essentials for Blank Gameweek 29, as I dubbed them earlier in this video. So Tony, Bowen and Watkins should all be considered for the captaincy, and I'd probably rank it Son first, Maddison second, probably Tony third, Watkins fourth and Bowen fifth. But certainly that list is open to interpretation and also subject to changes as we approach the deadline stream. Be sure to tune in for that as well on my YouTube channel. But that's pretty much it in regards to the best free hit team for Blank Gameweek 29. If you're also wondering still at this point, should I free hit or not, I think if you have 7 players without needing to take many hits and you're covering those 5 options, you can save the free hit for later in the season. But if you're struggling to get to a decent number of players, you have to take multiple hits, or you aren't covering the majority of those 5 key options, in that scenario or those scenarios, I would recommend deploying the free hit chip, and I think it could really benefit you and at least gain you 20 plus points, and that would be a nice net return and profit in terms of the free hit chip, which is the second most powerful behind the wildcard. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, Drafthound, and all of my content in podcast format. The links are in the description below. I wish you all the best of luck for Blank Gameweek 29 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.